wait for everyone to start pouring in. It usually takes a few minutes.
Is the Zog fire still happening?
The Zog fire it's about, I believe, 80% plus controlled now. And I think the growth of the fire has started to slow. We'll give it just a minute, perhaps. I think people are still pouring in pretty quickly. All right, I'll go ahead and get started while a few more people start jumping on. Most of the people on the call probably know me already. My name is Todd Jones, and I am the president of the Shasta EDC. I've been in this role for about 3 months, but I've been with the EDC for about 4 years and from the area locally between Redding and Trinity County. So I'm very grateful to be in the position I'm in. And I think Shasta County, although we have a lot of challenges with fires and COVID and everything else, we have a lot of opportunities ahead of us. We have a lot of infrastructure being developed. Of course, we have downtown revitalization, and most of our manufacturing businesses, most of them, not all of them, are doing relatively well considering all the challenges that we have right now. And I'm very grateful for State Treasurer Fiona Ma and her office reaching out to us to co-host this webinar because the state does have a lot of great opportunities, which you'll hear about over the next hour with funding and incentives. And we aren't always as highlighted as other areas of the state, but these programs are certainly available to us. And at the EDC, we're familiar with all of these organizations at some level, and we're always happy to help businesses in Shasta County through the process of applying for one of these or going through one of these. So I'm excited about the speakers. We have a great panel ahead of us, and I'm, again, very grateful for State Treasurer Ma for joining us. So I'll do a quick introduction for the treasurer. Fiona Ma is California State's 34th state treasurer. She was elected on November 6, 2018 with more votes than any other candidate for treasurer in state's history. So well done. She is the first woman of color and the first woman certified public accountant elected to the position. The state treasurer's office was created in California in the California Constitution in 1849. It provides financing for schools, roads, housing, recycling and waste management, hospitals, public facilities, and other crucial infrastructure projects that better the lives of residents in California. California is the 5th largest economy, and Treasurer Ma is the state's primary banker. Her office processes more than $2 trillion in payments within a typical year. She provides transparency and oversight for the government's investment portfolio and accounts, as well as for the state's surplus fund. Treasurer Ma oversees an investment portfolio of more than $102 billion. Approximately $20 billion of which are local government funds. She serves as the agent for the sale for all state bonds and is the trustee on over $100 billion of outstanding debt. So that is quite the resume and a lot of responsibilities, and we're grateful that you're in that position. And Treasurer Ma, I will let you take it from here. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd, for hosting us here today and giving us an opportunity to talk about the number of programs and services and grants and loan opportunities that the state has to offer. I've personally done about 90 webinars to date, and being able to reach out directly virtually is one of the silver linings of COVID, is that we no longer have to show up in person, but we could hop on our computer and get the information more readily to more people during this, this crisis time. We have a great panel of speakers today. I think we have 7 wonderful speakers who are going to depart a lot of information to folks. We will have someone putting information in the chat in case you miss something that one of the speakers said. But again, my office has been pivoting to not only these webinars, but also compiling COVID resource guides for small business, individuals, nonprofits, seniors, food access, and tax relief. And those are all on my website, www.treasurerma.com. treasure.ca.gov. There are two buttons. One is our official COVID-19 button, where you can read the latest and greatest from the governor's executive orders down to the reopening plans and real facts and figures and links to the different state agencies. And then the other one is my resource guide. So we encourage you to log on. They are updated in real time so that you're not applying for something that is already expended, and that would save you a lot of time. And in addition, if you have questions, perhaps of today to some of the speakers, or we haven't covered it here today, please email me at askfiona@treasure.ca.gov. Catherine Asprey is solely focused on answering these emails. She'll call you back if you would like and try to answer your questions or connect you to the appropriate person in the different agencies to make sure that you are getting what you need. So without further ado, I am going to leave enough time for our speakers here today, and I will be back on at the end to cover anything that the speakers did not cover. But as you can see on the screen, we have Isabel and Kana, Emily, Janie, Miriam, Jonathan, and also, can't see this, hold on a minute, and Renee from ETP speaking today. So I'm just gonna ask the speakers to just go in order as is on the screen so that I don't have to waste time getting on and off. And if you would just, after you're finished presenting, if the next speaker would jump on, that would be helpful so that we can make sure that we get everyone on today's program. So thank you so much. And I'm going to turn it over to Isabel. Isabel.
Thank you so much, Treasurer Ma, for organizing today, as well as your leadership on an ongoing basis, especially for small businesses. Thank you to Shasta EDC for convening everyone for this special Zoom conference as well. Just making sure that Shasta County is connected to resources. As you said, it's a big welcome to all the business and community participants out there. In these times, it is critical that we arm ourselves with information and build strategies for resilience. And so I've been a small business owner myself and come from a family of entrepreneurs. And so really appreciate the everyday challenges of the constituents that I serve, small businesses and innovative startups. If we could switch to the next slide, please. So my office, the California Office of the Small Business Advocate, is an independent office within GoBiz, and we're charged with supporting small businesses and innovative startups. And we focus on ensuring opportunities, identifying barriers, and partnering to help businesses start, manage, and grow, and be resilient. We have three main focus areas, and that is providing information and resources, advocating on behalf of small businesses and innovative startups, and supporting preparedness and strategies for resilience. Next slide. So as the voice of small business, we do focus, we focus on, making sure that our Agile team is there to provide direct assistance. So we do provide either via email or phone calls, support to businesses who need it. And of course, during this time, that has increased dramatically. We also have a newly appointed Northern California advisor, Michelle Radmond, who was previously in our office as a program manager, so is representing Northern California as a whole. So we are, in addition to the direct assistance, though, we are working on developing content to reach more people, webinars. We've produced many webinars over the past few months and participated in many to get information out there. And you can find all these sessions on our website, which I'll list at the end. We also work with a network of agency partners, advocates and liaisons, as well as small business leads across our state partners. But most importantly, and what's pictured here on this map, is that California funds a network of local assistance centers to support the advisors who exist on the ground to provide one-on-one consulting trainings, especially most recently on PPP and digital pivot strategies and more. And in Shasta County, we have several statewide organizations that provide local support, including a couple PTACs that might work with partners on the ground, the procurement centers for procurement, CMTC, which is the California Manufacturing Technology Consultant. They help local partners partners, funded through their programs, and they partner with Grow with Manufacturing, which is Shasta GMI or Shasta EDC and others. And then, of course, the VBOC, the Veterans Business Opportunity Center, that works with veterans. And there's a Northern and Southern veteran VBOC. And so they're on the ground as well. And then most importantly, as there's a location in Reading, is NorCal SBDC hosts the Shasta Cascade SBDC in Reading. Next slide. As the voice of small business, we do focus on advocating on behalf of small business in both private markets and in government. And we focus on three key areas, making sure there's access to capital, access to markets, and access to networks, really being the critical lifeblood of any entrepreneur looking for answers, those key networks. On the capital front, we have been working behind the scenes to advocate for funding across government, private philanthropy, impact investors, knowing that we need to fill the gaps for small businesses during COVID, especially those who couldn't access federal relief. And I know you're hearing from iBank later, so you'll hear about some of the capital options that were recently funded, but Governor Newsom did fund $50 million for disaster loans early on as well. In the budget, the governor and the legislature approved a $75 million additional capital infusion into iBank to support additional lending programs, which you'll hear more about. On the access to networks front, we do have an entrepreneurship task force that produces a lot of webinars and is making themselves available. These are 15 experienced and successful entrepreneurs who want to help California small businesses and emerging innovative entrepreneurs as they try to navigate this space. And so that's a great asset that we have in addition. And then finally, on the access to markets front, which is the revenue side of the equation and one we've really tried to lean into, we do focus on procurement and supply chain, and especially helping you navigate the state agencies. As I said, there are advocates at all the agencies that we partner with. We sit on the small business councils on procurement. So just, continue to try to be that voice and help you navigate. And our centers are increasing their procurement capacity training so that we can help more businesses access this space. And as we focus on onshoring and nearshoring, we'll continue to roll out programs to support getting contract ready during this time. E-commerce, we can go to the next slide, is another part of our access to markets, and one that originally started about helping people get online to access world markets, but really in today's space, it's just accessing local markets. And so truly, we know that businesses were disrupted by COVID. One survey by Google, it was 93% of businesses were disrupted and 85% were really rethinking their approach to digital tools. And that included everything from Zoom to cashless payments, but especially focusing on e-commerce, where businesses could expand revenues and create safe environments. We also know that a third of the businesses surveyed by another survey with Facebook said that they would have closed all or part of their business if not for technology tools. And so we launched Get Digital California to help California small businesses build the digital skills that they need to compete in an online marketplace and really create like a safer shopping experience for consumers as well in the process. The first segment of the initiative has been, has received strong support from small businesses. We've had over nearly 3,000 register and many participate in the Google trainings. These were Grow with Google, so figuring out how to improve your online presence so that businesses could find you. And we're concluding a session on using YouTube to grow your business tomorrow, actually, Wednesday, October 7th. So if you visit our website, you can see the previous sessions we've done with Grow with Google, and then register for this upcoming one tomorrow. And just also stay tuned for the future segments of this Get Digital campaign, which will include boot camps and more intensive trainings, as well as digital festivals to try to help small businesses, especially as we build up to this holiday shopping season and many unknowns around COVID. We can go to the next slide. Finally, we focus on preparedness and resilience, I mentioned, and there's a couple things I want to call out to you for resources. I do encourage everyone to use the government-backed Outsmart Disaster tool at outsmartdisaster.com, which has been improved recently thanks to grants. And so that with all the upgrades, they now have this Resilient Business Challenge, which is a 5-step course you can take, walk through it whenever you want at your leisure time, and get a completion badge from GoBiz at the end of it, which really, and then a connection to all the toolkit of resources to help your business stay resilient. And of course, on our GoBiz site, website for the disasters that are happening now in terms of just response. We do list the disaster resources for wildfire as well as COVID, and that's the full range of what FEMA has lined up, SBA, as well as all the state resources in addition. Next slide. So just finally, this is a way for you to stay in touch with us. I gave you a hint of some of the things that we work on, but know that we're here as a resource to small businesses and innovative startups in the state, and developing programs and initiatives to continue to support you as well as be the voice of small businesses. So thank you again for having me. My best wishes for you all during this time frame. Thank you. And also passing it on to my colleague, Kaina Pereira.
Thank you, Isabel. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Todd and Treasurer Ma, for inviting me to be part of this conversation, which I know is always relevant and always important, especially as we are looking at the challenges of today, but also the opportunities in the future. So I'm going to go over a pretty dense amount of information, but obviously we have a lot of other partners with us, and so they'll be going over some of the programs that are outside of our vein and more in their lane. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So that's my contact information, and we can go ahead and skip that one. So I run 3 different units within GoBiz: International Affairs and Trade, CalBiz, which is Business Investment Services, and then also the Office of Permit Assistance. If you go to the next one. So International Affairs and Trade, obviously the one thing that would be the most prescient for those members of the small business community on the phone here is our export development and promotion. And that's facilitated through a program called STEP, which I'll get into just next. The other thing that we do is we try and attract inbound delegations and inbound attraction for job creation opportunities by those companies overseas who are seeking to make California their next footprint. Can you go to the next slide? So as I previously mentioned, the State Trade and Expansion Program, or STEP, is a program that is specifically geared towards assistance in small businesses for providing export assistance, business matchmaking, which is we'll bring together, and we've done this in a series of events recently with Mexico, Colombia, and Chile, where we partner with small business owners who are seeking to have relevant conversations with decision makers on the other side. So recent trips have involved the aviation and aerospace and defense industries, and we're continuing to look at opportunities that will service our small business community as much as possible. The way that this generally functions is we're able to provide either reimbursements or programs for small businesses who are seeking the opportunity to expand their operations by providing exports. So there's participation in training, there's some marketing assistance, whether it be website development or translation, support for small businesses who participate in foreign trade missions. So if you're going to another country and you've incurred some expenses, obviously it's difficult now, but as we look at the virtual events that are happening, but also the possibility of future events down the road, this is some service that you may want to become a part of. More information is obviously available on our website. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, the other units that I run are, one is the California Business Investment Services. And so this is really a concierge style service for tailored site selection. So if there's an opportunity for expansion of, say, your facilities, or the need to look into different incentives that are available, and a lot of them are authored and used by companies of all sizes. But I would also like to say that those incentives are going to be gone over in much greater detail by some of by the rest of the participants on this panel today. So the other thing that we do is, in the Office of Permit Assistance, is to help for identification and mediation, as well as provide a permitting tool called CalGold. And the reason behind that is that we know that there's a myriad of different permits and regulations that are necessary when you're operating, and we're just here to help try and figure out what are the things that you need, and then how we can help facilitate those things. Next. Another component of our office is the Local Economic Development Liaison Services, which was enacted by SB 635. It covers both opportunity zones and promise zones, and I know a lot of conversations have been engaged around the Opportunity Zone program, which is a federal program. You can find more information about California's involvement with that tool in particular at opzones.ca.gov. And also, if you have any inquiries or questions about opportunity zones, promise zones, or the like, you can definitely submit a ticket through our website, and those get answered usually within 24 hours. I know that because this is a federal program, there's a lot of questions around what the state actually does to engender it. But as you know, previously on page 94, the previous budget that was submitted by Governor Newsom, he was talking about layering tools such as EIFDs, which are enhanced infrastructure financing districts, which is basically a tax increment financing tool, which allows for communities to use the projected property tax to actually do some embedded investment into the areas that are defined under the EIFD. There's obviously a myriad of different options there, and we'd be happy to work with anybody in trying to get the ball rolling on something like that in your area. Next, please. So after this segment, there would be a number of tax credits and exemptions, which are all generally housed in different agencies. But as we stated before, we're the liaison between businesses and incentives, and also for site selection. So I'll be going over some of the ones that are not covered by some of the other panelists in here, and we can go to the next slide. So the one that is within GOBIZ completely is the California Competes tax credit. And so this tax credit program is a credit against income tax due to the Franchise Tax Board. It's based on the California income tax line, and it is non-refundable. It has a 6-year carry forward, and there are multiple application periods during the year. Typical funding available on a calendar or on a fiscal year is $180 million, plus any of the clawbacks from those companies who've either decided not to forego the credit or who have not been able to fulfill their achievement. The idea around this is definitely based on job creation and investment. And so there's both a qualitative and a quantitative methodology behind the way that this is enacted and how it is carried forward. But generally speaking, those jobs that would be created elsewhere are eligible for this type of credit. We'd be happy to connect you with our CalCompetes tax credit team. And as you see on the link below, that's a place to go for more information. You can look at previous awards, you can look at when the hearing or the meetings are, and also any other information that you might have or need. The next window is in January, starting on January 4th, and there's a total of $80 million in credit available. This is not something that we suggest you do by yourself or in a vacuum. Please feel free to reach out to us to be connected to the CalCompetes team, and they'll help you with your application throughout the process. It is a fairly arduous process, but at the same time, you're talking about a large availability of tax credits. Next, please. The next one is the new employment credit. So this is related to new hires that are in a qualified designation. And so some of the people who would qualify would be those who are unemployed for a longer period of time, so 6 months or longer, those who are veterans and have recently separated from the U.S. Armed Forces, any recipient of the Earned Income Tax Credit, and that has expanded as the roles of the Earned Income Tax Credit in California has also expanded. Anybody who is an ex-offender convicted of felony, and then current CalWORKs or general assistance recipients, which we know that based on the pandemic, there has been an increase in that area as well. For you to be eligible for this, they must also have qualified wages, which means that they must exceed 150% of the state's minimum wage, and that will be rolling forward as the minimum wage increases go into effect as well. The third qualifier is being within a designated geographical area, and the link that is below there is also able to show you which areas are able to be included. And so you're talking about the former designations of enterprise zones or LAMBRAs, or things that are areas that have high unemployment and high poverty. And so this is really supposed to enact that social change that we're looking for in terms of trying to build out and build a more inclusive economy. Next, please. This next award is similar to one that you're going to hear later on in the discussion, but this is a partial sales and use tax exemption. And it's related to specific classifications of products in specific industries. So there's general manufacturing and R&D, which is, this exemption is for the state portion of the sales tax and the procurement of products that allow you to do business. Another group that also receives this type of exemption is in the agriculture equipment. And then a third, which also might be prescient, which is not listed on here, is in relation to timber. So we can provide you guys some more information on the timber award as well. But the way it works is you are claiming this credit at the time of purchasing, and it's administered by a CDTFA. And what they'll be able to do is basically reimburse for the amount that the claimant has in the sales and use tax exemption. And so it actually is something where you can use up to $200 million in purchases towards it. So in some sense, if you go that far down, it can be sizable in terms of the exemption that you would be able to achieve. Next, please. Next is our R&D corporate income tax credit, which is very much so used by most organizations. And I encourage you guys to do it because it's actually very simple. It's just a portion of your tax return. And so it's anybody who is engaged in qualified, what is quote unquote called qualified research activities, would then be able to claim that directly on their tax returns. So the maximum credit award is also $200 million. It is in two different buckets. One is by those who are doing it in-house and those who are utilizing third-party organizations for some of the R&D research and development. So it can include both basic and applied, original investigation, origination, or advancement in scientific or engineering knowledge, as well as improving a function of it. So process improvement would be something that could be qualified as well. Definitely encourage you guys all to understand and get to know this program in particular, as the benefits can be quite substantial. And obviously, we're always iterating to improve, and this is another area where I think if you are in the market for improvement, then you should be justifiably using this income tax credit. Next. So this is a resource for all businesses, both large and small, but what it has is a bunch of different tools that you could use. It was speaking earlier about the Cowgold tool, but also about quick start guides or different information that could be necessary as you're looking to navigate the process of either opening or expanding your business. Next. So with that, I'd like to thank you for the time here. And obviously our help center was referred to earlier, but definitely let us know if there's anything you need assistance on. We are standing ready to assist as much as we can. And I believe that next is Emily Burgos out of iBank.
Hi, Kaina. Thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Emily Burgos. I manage the Small Business Finance Center at iBank. I'm going to kind of skip over a little bit of what iBank does and just dig into what the Finance Center is doing for COVID disaster recovery specifically. The Small Business Finance Center has been managing the Small Business Loan Guarantee Program since 2011, but the Small Business Loan Guarantee Program has actually been around since the late 60s. In our Small Business Loan Guarantee Program, we do have a disaster relief loan guarantee program that received $50 million worth of funding at the beginning of April to assist directly with COVID recovery. Now, with that $50 million, we funneled it into our regular program, but we were targeting businesses with capital needs of $50,000 or less, historically in areas of low to moderate income, and really hoping to reach borrowers that typically have difficulty getting access to capital. So the way a guarantee program works is quite simple. Banks and CDFIs oftentimes have trouble lending to small business because there's a lot of risk factors that they have to consider. And in a disaster scenario, especially one like a pandemic, those risks are exacerbated. So what we do is we offer the lender a 95% guarantee on a loan to an eligible small business. So that just tells the lender if the loan goes bad or if the borrower is unable to pay, we'll go ahead and cover their loss up to 95%. So that's what we've been doing here. For the first part of the year, we were only offering this program to folks who could not access federal disaster relief resources. So folks who were able to get EIDL or PPP loans were not eligible. We did definitely listen to feedback from our partners and from the business community. And as those federal programs fell short, we opened up our program on July 1st for any business that was negatively impacted by COVID. So there's a couple of questions you need to ask yourself when deciding whether or not to seek a loan guarantee. And one is, are you eligible for the program? So if you see here on the screen, there's an infographic. It's also available on my website. We can help just about any business in California that's operating legally. Unfortunately, if you're operating in a federally legal business, we won't be able to help you. And you have 750 employees or fewer. We have very few exclusions in this program. Some of the easiest ones to list are passive real estate investment, housing, and gambling, and that sort of stuff. We have some limitations on lobbying activities, but if you're a 501c6, go ahead and reach out and we can figure out if you would be eligible. Next slide. The first thing you want to do in order to apply for a loan is reach out directly to a lender. So that's going to be the quickest way to get the loan application process started. You're going to negotiate the terms of the loan with the lender. The lender will apply for the guarantee directly with me. So you don't actually have to interface with me at all unless you have questions. You can work directly with the lender and it's their responsibility to go and get the guarantee. Once the lender has a loan package, they'll submit it and we'll decide if we're able to offer a guarantee on that loan. Next slide. The next question you probably have is, what can I use the money for? And that's a great question. In this program, we do get a bit specific about what the money can be used for. According to our guidance, we have to prove that you actually suffered economic injury as a result of the pandemic. For most businesses, this is not a difficult task. If you've been shut down or if you can show notably less income than this period last year, then you'll have no trouble showing that you've suffered that economic injury. And then the loan proceeds must be used to either directly cure that injury or to keep the business open. And as I mentioned previously, the loan terms are going to be negotiated between you and the lender. That being said, if the lender wants a 95% guarantee, they have to give you an interest rate of prime plus 1 or less. So they are incentivized to offer you a lower interest rate to get a higher guarantee. Next slide. I highly recommend you visit my website. My list of participating lenders is constantly changing. So you can see who's actually on there making these disaster loans and what area they cover. The other reason why I would visit my website is we've actually noticed that we're having some lenders run out of money to make loans. So separately from the $50 million we received at the beginning of April, we also received $25 million to help inject some money into the small business lending community. Now, without boring you with the intimate details, what we're working on is leveraging that $25 million into $100 million plus with capital from the private sector in order to create a loan fund for small dollar loans to be made by CDFIs to businesses recovering from COVID. I'll go ahead and share a link to the California Rebuilding Fund. Just kidding, that's not the correct link. I will put in the correct link. That program is currently being developed. We are currently fundraising for it. And it will, as I mentioned, inject quite a few $1 million into the small business lending community for small businesses to get loans. The benefit to you is that there actually is an online application portal for that program. So you would go online, input your information, and then they would match you with a lender who's going to be able to make that loan. In the meantime, please check my website for the lenders who are using my disaster relief guarantee program. And then it's my pleasure to turn it over to JD Davis, who is my colleague at the State Treasurer's Office with the CalCap program.
Thank you very much, Emily. You did a great job describing your programs. I'd like to thank the Treasurer and thank Todd at the Shasta EDC for having us today. I'm here to talk about the California Capital Access Program. It's offered by the California Pollution Control Financing Authority. We're an independent authority within the State Treasurer's Office. And the California Capital Access Program is different from the programs that Emily mentioned in that Emily has a loan guarantee program. Our program is a what's called a loan loss reserve program. And the more we provide contributions to lenders, and the larger the lender's loan loss reserve becomes, the better able they're going to be able to make good on claims or defaults that that happen among their borrowers. That's my little introduction. Next slide, please. The CalCap program was established in 1994, and it started as CalCap for Small Business. That's our more general program. It's perfect for working capital, to cover startup costs and other typical credit needs, construction, renovation of buildings, different working capital equipment and things like that are often covered in the CalCap loans. That's our more general program. Then we have a collateral support program. The collateral support program provides a different kind of credit enhancement. And this program works really well for borrowers who have strong credit, but maybe lack the sufficient collateral they need to be able to qualify for a loan. And then the third program I'm going to mention today is our CalCap Air Resources Board Truck Loan Assistance Program. And this program, with funding from the California Air Resources Board, we're able to help owners of small fleets to finance the equipment they need to get clean trucks on the road to comply with the state's engine emission standards. I've listed a couple other programs here, more out of for just basic information and background, that we do have programs that help with the installation of electric vehicle charging station, one to help small businesses become ADA compliant, and another one to help property owners finance what they need to become their buildings to become seismically safe. Next slide, please. As Emily mentioned, much like her program, we have quite a range of businesses that are able to participate in the CalCap program. We can cover startups and nonprofits and businesses with fewer than 500 employees. There are a few things we can't finance. Sometimes it depends on the source of funds to look at refinancing. Commercial real estate just depends if the property is owned by the business owner. And passive real estate, much like Emily's, is not something we can do. Or gambling, shooting ranges, adult entertainment, tobacco products, and alcohol sales. However, we can enroll loans for wineries and breweries, which I know are very popular right now and in need of assistance. Next slide, please. I wanted to put a slide in here to talk a little bit about who turned to CalCap for Small Business last year. And you can see the large orange piece of the pie is our transportation and warehousing business uses. The next, it looks like there's a close tie between retail and accommodation and food services. I think the reason that our trucking, the transportation and warehousing is on the larger side is, again, we have this, the CalCap, California Air Resources Board. And if a loan isn't qualified, does not meet the specific requirements of the California Air Resources Board, it can likely be enrolled in our CalCap for Small Business program. So I wanted to show how just if a borrower doesn't meet the specifics of some of our more specialized programs, they generally are able to meet the requirements for the small business program. I took a quick look at our numbers for Shasta, and in 2019 and 2020 combined, it looks like we did 5 loans in our CalCap for Small Business program, loans totaling $153,000, and on our California Air Resources Board, we did 17 loans for $1.5 million. Next slide, please. A little bit more on the details of our CalCap for Small Business program. As I mentioned, this tends to be the more general purposes enroll loans. Borrowers with more general purposes enroll in this program. We see land acquisition, startup costs, working capital, construction. Another interesting thing that I like to point out is we do see businesses that are waiting for bridge loans from SBA or FEMA, and they just need some money up front to be able to to buy the equipment or make the improvements that they need to make. We also do a lot of loans in the CalCap for Small Business program for food trucks. The maximum loan amount for this program is $5 million, and the maximum enrolled amount is $2.5 million. We do have extra loan loss support for loans to businesses in severely affected communities, and that could be communities with high levels of unemployment. We've recently expanded this to include businesses directly impacted by COVID-19 and businesses who have been directly impacted by our recent fires, disasters, and power shutoffs. We do not set the underwriting criteria for the loans in this program. Instead, the lenders set those terms and conditions depending on the credit worthiness of the borrower. And so we just ask that they use their standard prudent underwriting procedures to do so. And the loans, based on the needs of the borrower, could be short-term or long-term, have a fixed or variable rate, or bear just about any type of amortization schedule. I provided links to our overall program page as well as our lender list. As I mentioned, the businesses work directly with our lenders, and here's a link to our lender list, and this is for the CalCap for Small Business program. And again, this does this list changes on a regular basis as we add new lenders to the list. So I encourage you to follow it if you get a chance. Next slide, please. Here's a little more detail on our collateral support program. As I mentioned, different than our CalCap for Small Business is the collateral support program actually pledges cash to support the collateral shortfall for businesses that might not otherwise be able to get financing if they didn't have, because they lack the collateral. So we do provide that cash support. Again, we often see, this is another familiar use for the collateral support loans or for bridge loans for borrowers who are waiting for permanent financing to kick in, for startup costs, construction, working capital, inventory, or equipment purchases. These tend to be larger loans. The minimum loan amount is $50,000 and the maximum is $50,000 to $20 million for the under collateralized loans. We also provide an additional supplemental contribution for loans enrolled for green businesses or manufacturing loans. The smaller loans between $50,000 and $250,000, and to those loans enrolled to businesses in severely affected communities. And as I mentioned, that's businesses in areas of high unemployment, impacted by COVID, or impacted by the designated disasters. The maximum collateral per loan per borrower is $2.5 million. And again, I provided a link to our program page and a lender list. There are different lenders that participate in the collateral support program than in the CalCap for Small Business program. There is some overlap, but I would encourage, if you're looking into the collateral support program, to definitely take a look at the lender list for that program. Next slide. I did include the links to the lender lists on each of the programs that the two programs I mentioned. I wanted to provide, just as if you wanted to look across the lenders in all of our programs, this is our webpage. And as you can see, the links here are for each of the programs that I mentioned earlier. And I'd like to just add that we are accepting new lenders. If there's lenders that businesses feel comfortable with working with on a regular basis and already have an established relationship, we do encourage them to have their lenders give us a call. We are happy to provide training and education to those lenders. Next slide. And I included a link here on how lenders can apply. It's a simple one-page application. Most lending institutions can qualify to participate in CalCap. I've listed the federal and state chartered banks, credit unions, savings associations, CDFIs. And And there's other types of institutions that could qualify depending on the source of CalCAP funds. For our truck program, we tend to have finance lenders that enroll in that program as well, and that works. But here is the link to our lender application. And next slide, please. And here's my contact information, a link to our CalCAP webpage, our CalCAP inbox, and our phone number. As well as I encourage you to follow our Twitter handle. We provide a lot of resources for small business through our Twitter handle. We have staff in the office here to answer questions. Should a borrower have a question or a lender have a question, and we're very responsive to any and all of those questions that come in. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we will do what we can to be of assistance. And I will now hand it over to Renee with the California ETP, the Employment and Training Panel. Renee?
Thank you, Janae. So the Employment Training Panel is a state agency that provides funding assistance to employers in California who are training their existing workers or newly hired individuals. I'm going to focus today on our COVID-19 pilot and the Paid Family Leave Small Business Grant Program. These are two new initiatives in response, obviously, to the pandemic. Next slide, please. So we have a mix of types of contractors, multiple employer contract partners who provide assistance to very small employers who still need to do training but can't necessarily administer an ETP contract on their own. So we have what we call MECs out there that can help with training for very small to medium-sized businesses. Our application process assistance and interactive orientation is online. I provide these live orientations once a month to give an overview of the program and the process for applying for the funds. And the link is here to do that, as well as you can call me directly and I can set something up for you, or if you have any general questions about ETP. Our current funding year, July 1, started with about 80 million in training funds overall. Normally we would have over 100 million, but this year because of COVID, we have been impacted slightly, but we still have assistance available for employers. Next slide. So trainees can be new and existing full-time workers, unemployed individuals, apprenticeship and journey workers, small business owners. And the training is employer customized job skills training, excluding legally mandated training such as sexual harassment, labor law, or OSHA. There are some exceptions to that. We do offer flexible delivery methods and provider choices for the employer. You know better than we do how to train your workers and what those skills gaps are that you need and who might be able to provide the best training assistance for that. We do have a post-training employment retention period required, normally 90 days past the end of all training. And we do require what we call an in-kind contribution, which is just basically a math calculation on how much training is going to be delivered, how many trainees, and the in-kind contribution is basically, for an employer, the wages that you would be paying for an employee while they're being trained. Next slide, please. So to get to the COVID-19 response plan, it was enacted in March and extended through the end of this year. And it is for our existing contractors to allow them flexibilities to their contracts to mitigate the effects of COVID-19 impacts If they've had to stop training, they've had to furlough workers, etc. We have extended the incidental placement. We've allowed more safety training flexibility, furloughed worker retention flexibility, meaning that if the furloughed worker is gone more than 90 days past the end of training, we will not penalize the employer. And then more importantly and most focused is our COVID rapid reemployment and retraining pilot, which next slide, please. So this is a very focused initiative that is focused on healthcare, the food supply chain industries, and industries critical to reopening the economy during the pandemic. And you can see we use what's called a NAICS code to identify employers that are eligible for this particular pilot. If you're not aware of what your NAICS code is, you can contact me and I can help assist finding what your NAICS code is. But basically, these are industries that are in the healthcare and food supply chain, not necessarily priority industries for us during normal times or for our core program, but are essential during these pandemic times. Next slide, please. So the focus on the pilot will be new hire and job creation. So this is not for training for existing workers, but it is, you are able to use it for backfilling reemployment and furlough impacted workers. So if you have had to furlough or lay off workers and some of them don't come back and you need to hire new employees to take their place, this is what this particular program would help you do. The reimbursement is very easy, not similar to our core program where it's based on a number of hours of training and training types of training, etc. This is a flat fee reimbursement of $2,000 per trainee for a minimum of 4 hours of job skills training. And the maximum flexibility for training topics and delivery methods. So we're calling this, rather than having you enumerate different types of training and different training topics, you just come in and apply and say that you're going to be doing a COVID bundle. And there's no tracking of training hours, really. It's just a basic $2,000 per trainee. And then the wage requirement for this is $17.50 per hour. We do allow you to use $2.50 of employer paid benefits, dental, health, and vision as part of that calculated wage. So that if you're close to the $17.50, but not quite making it, you can use up to $2.50 with benefits that you're actually paying to your employees. We do have a modified post-training retention requirement. Rather than 35 hours a week of employment, it is now, for this pilot, 20 hours per week. Pilot projects are capped at $200,000 and may be held concurrently with a core program contract, which we don't normally do as well. So we're trying to give as much flexibility to employers out there to use our core program for funding of training that they would normally do. This, of course, is for those focused industries and focused training around COVID. Next slide, please. The other initiative we have going right now is the Paid Family Leave Small Business Grant. This is a program administered by EDD, which allows California workers to take paid leave to bond with a new child or to care for a seriously ill family member. And beginning July 1, it was expanded from 6 to 8 weeks. And the current proposed budget also expands the 12-week non-paid protected leave to all businesses regardless of business size. So small business is going to be more impacted by this Paid Family Leave Act. And for more information on the EDD website, you can find the information here at this link regarding how to apply for the leave. And that is something that the employee does in concurrence with the employer. Next slide, please. So we have been designated to administer $1 million in state general funds dollars to support this. And the principal impacts on the employer are going to be that you can train and upskill existing workers to cover the duties of the employees on PFL. And then you can hire and train additional workers if need be. And it's just a flat $500, next slide, please. It's a $500 payment to the employer to cover the costs associated with losing an employee from the PFL. We are going to be awarding 3 entities who will distribute the payments to California Small Business. Grant applications, if an organization is interested in being one of those grantees, grant applications must be submitted by SFP by October 15th. The SFP information can be found on our website at this link. You can also contact me and I can help assist you getting to that link as well. Next slide. So after November 1, any eligible small business may receive $500 per employee using the PFL. So this payment, as I said, is just to help cover any of the costs of hiring and training other employees, taking over the duties of those out on the PFL. The funds are paid by the PFL small business grant awardees, and the contact information for the awardees will be posted on the ETP website once they are awarded. And if you have questions about this as a small employer, please contact me directly and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have on this. Next slide. And this is my contact information. If you're in Southern California, we do have Elsa Wadzinski representing us in that area. And then statewide, our Director of Economic Development, Robert Meyer, is also available to answer any questions. And with that, I will turn it over to Miriam Joff-Block, who is the Senior Manager of the California Alternative Energy and Advanced Transportation Financing Authority, lovingly known as CATFA.
Thank you very much, Renee. I hope that my audio is working and folks can hear me. Good afternoon. Thank you so much to Treasurer Ma and to Todd and Shasta EDC for having us here today. So I am going to tell you a little bit about 2 programs through CATFA that can help small businesses financially and can help support a green economy. So we can go to the next slide. So the first program I want to talk about is our Small Business Energy Efficiency Financing Program. And we're aware that right now small businesses have a lot of pressure on them and are focused on economic survival, dealing with reopening, fires and smoke, and energy efficiency is not necessarily what any small business owner is thinking about. However, for those small businesses that do need to replace their HVAC systems or their water heating or their lighting, doing so can help lower operational costs and can improve cash flow. So through the Small Business Energy Efficiency Financing Program, businesses can access up to $5 million in financing with extended payment terms. Because our program provides finance companies with a credit enhancement, those finance companies are able to approve a very wide base of businesses, as well as provide better rates and terms that businesses would otherwise qualify for. Who is this program for? It's for small businesses in your area who are getting their energy from PG&E. Both property owners and businesses who lease their space can qualify, as well as cannabis growers and cannabis processors. We also have financing available for young or newer businesses with less established credit. Next slide, please. So through the program, a business can upgrade their entire property or just finance a single piece of equipment. And eligible measures include lighting, refrigeration, HVAC, food service equipment, and more. The financing can also be combined with PG&E's 0% no interest on bill financing program. Our program can cover the measures that PG&E will not. On the right, you see an example of a project financed through our program. So a bakery accessed $145,000 to do duct sealing and replace hood vents. And they also included some remodeling and took advantage of the ability to include some non-energy upgrades as well. If there are Shasta-based contractors listening to this call, we would love to have your participation in our program and list you as a participating contractor so that other small businesses can find you. If there are small businesses listening who need equipment financing for these types of projects, you can find all the details at gogreenfinancing.com, and you'll see the finance companies and their product offerings there. Next slide, please. The second program that I want to tell you about is the Sales Tax Exclusion Program for manufacturers. And the goal of this program is to support advanced manufacturing in California. So this is a way for manufacturers to purchase equipment without having to pay the sales and use tax on that equipment. That works out to about an 8 to 10% savings off of purchases, depending on the sales tax average at the time. This program is for startups or expansions. Businesses can access up to $10 million exclusion for each project and have 3 years to use it. In the example here on the slide, you can see that a sales tax exclusion would save $1.25 million on a $15 million purchase. We also have done projects as small as $500,000 in equipment that led to a sales tax exclusion of $25,000. There are 4 eligible pathways to access this program. The first is recycling. That includes companies that process recycled feedstock or use recycled feedstock in the production of another product. There is an alternative source pathway. So this is for producers of fuel or energy, the making of an alternative to fossil fuels, an alternative energy source to fossil fuels. The next pathway is advanced manufacturing, where the manufacturing process is more sustainable than the current industry standard. And then finally, advanced transportation, which is producing commercially competitive transportation relation technologies such as electric vehicles or batteries for zero emission vehicles. And to learn more about these programs or to discuss eligibility, you can contact us at catefa@sto.ca.gov. And I will put both the Small Business Energy Efficiency Financing Program website as well as the contact here in the chat. Thank you. I'm sorry, and I am now turning it over, I believe, to Jonathan Herrera from the CalSavers Retirement Savings Board.
Yes, thank you, Miriam, so much for that introduction. And let me also say thank you to Todd and the Shasta County EDC, and of course to Treasurer Ma for hosting this meeting and allowing us to join and share this program with you. Again, my name is Jonathan Herrera. I am the Outreach Manager for the CalSavers program. So I lead the program's outreach and education initiatives out of the State Treasurer's Office. And obviously, thank you all for joining us today. You know, my heart goes out to all of you business owners who are affected by, you know, both the pandemic and now the fires. And, you know, we want you to know that at CalSavers, you know, we're committed to supporting you through these uncertain times by offering extra support and flexibility. So CalSavers is the state's new retirement savings program for private sector workers that don't have access to a retirement savings program at work. And similar to what some of my colleagues said, while you might not be thinking about retirement savings options for your employees, you know, during this series of crises that we're facing as a state, I think that, you know, if there's one thing that the COVID-19 pandemic has really underscored in terms of personal finances, it's how important it is for workers to have access to programs that promote their short and long-term financial stability. And CalSavers was designed exactly for that. And I think that even as we work to heal our communities, and safeguard private sector jobs, I don't think it's premature to give attention to programs that will strengthen personal economic security and family economic security in the post-virus period. So I'm just going to take a minute to give you a little bit of background on the program and give you a very, very brief overview, because we're getting close to time on this webinar, to tell you a little bit how the program works or what it's about. And then I'll turn it back over to the treasurer. But CalSavers was created back in 2016 by legislation. It was Senate Bill 1234. And what the legislation was trying to address is this retirement savings access gap that exists in the state. The research shows that about 50%, half of Californians, are on track to retire into economic hardship. And we think that a key driver of that is that there's 7.5 million Californians who are going to work every day, playing by the rules, but don't have access to a workplace-based savings vehicle. And the research also shows that folks are 15 times more likely to be saving and be on a path towards retirement security if they have access to a savings vehicle at work. So that's what the legislation was trying to address. So back in 2016, when it passed, it really did two things. Number one, it gave us the green light to start creating this program. But number two, it did create a new mandate for California businesses. And that says that, any business in the state that has at least 5 employees, if you're not currently offering a qualified retirement plan, you're going to be required to register for the program and facilitate employers or your employees' access to this program. Now, the deadlines for registration roll out over the next 3 years based on the size of your business. And the first one actually just passed for employers with more than 100 employees. The registration deadline was September 30th of 2020. So if there happen to be any employers from Shasta County who have more than 100 employees on this webinar, now's the time to get registered. The next couple of deadlines roll out over the next 2 years. So businesses with more than 50 employees will have until June 30th, 2021. And then businesses with more than 5 or more employees will have until June 30th of 2022. But it's important to note that we opened the program statewide on July 1st. And when we opened it, it's available for all eligible businesses. So if you happen to have 5 or more employees or be in the next deadline, you don't have to wait for that registration deadline. If you're ready to get started and help your employees save for their futures, we are ready to help you with that. And if there are any employers on here with less than 5 employees, rest assured you are not subject to the mandate. Unfortunately, you can't register for the program, but we did open the program and make it available for individual participation. So for folks who work for those small businesses, or if you happen to be, self-employed, an independent contractor, or a gig worker, you are welcome to go to our website, calsavers.com, and start your own account anytime and start saving. Next slide, please. So quickly, what we had in mind, when creating this program, one of the first things we did was reach out to small business owners and engage with them and find out what it is about retirement savings plans on the existing market that make it difficult for employers to offer them to their employees. And by and large, employers would say they're too hard to maintain, they're too expensive to maintain, and we don't want to take on the fiduciary liability. We don't need that kind of responsibility or liability. So we addressed CalSavers with all 3 of those things in mind. We've tried to make it as easy as possible for employers to facilitate. There are no fees for employers to participate in the program. The program is going to be entirely self-sustaining based on the very small fee that we'll charge savers. And then, of course, because employers are not sponsoring this plan, employers are not fiduciaries. The 9-member public board that I work for, chaired by the state treasurer, and all of our relevant contractors, working behind the scenes to maintain the program, have assumed that responsibility. And for employers, all you have to do is register by your state required deadline. Tell us a little bit about how you do your payroll, and provide us the list of your employees, and then facilitate their payroll contributions as part of your existing payroll process. And we've got, businesses with all types of payroll arrangements, from, the mom and pop shop where the aunt is doing the books and they're still writing paper checks. And then we have folks with full service payroll. And by and large, we've seen that, the CalSavers contribution process fits really seamlessly with most employers' existing payroll system. So, we're looking forward to engaging with employers and helping them get this set up and helping to get their employees on a path towards retirement security. Next slide, please. So, you know, we invite you to connect with us. We've got tons of information on our website. Again, that's calsavers.com. We've got dedicated customer service lines for both employers and savers. But really, the best way to engage with us is through our one-on-one support. We've got a dedicated onboarding team to help employers through the registration and facilitation process to get them up and running. And then we also have a field team with, you know, local folks based throughout the state that are ready to work one-on-one with employers, again, to help them, you know, get on board and answer any of their questions, their questions or their employee questions. And again, you know, we have very little time to talk about the program. So the best way to really learn more would be to join one of our webinars. If you visit calsavers.com/events, you'll see a list of all of our webinars. We're doing 2 a week for employers to learn about the program. And we really get into the detail about what it looks like to facilitate the program. So next slide, please. Before I turn it over to the treasurer, I'd just like to say that, you know, as we talk about, you know, building back the economy and building it better, you know, as we emerge from this pandemic, I think it's really important that we talk about, you know, ways to create good jobs for employees as they come back. And I think the retirement savings vehicle should be a very important component of that. So thank you very much for your time. And with that, I will turn it back over to the treasurer, I think, to close us out. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Todd, again, for the opportunity. And thank you to all the speakers. I learned something every time, and we had a couple of new speakers with new topics, and I'm taking, you know, copious notes so that I can also be able to talk about our programs. I just want to add a couple of other resources and websites that weren't previously mentioned. We have entered into a public-private partnership with private companies as well as foundations. And that website is onwardca.org, where you can connect to essential services. There are retraining opportunities, and there are also job opportunities. So for those of you who are looking for a full or part-time job, please log on to onwardca.org. The census has also been extended to October 31st. So if you have not filled out your census form, it's 9 easy questions. It takes less than 2 minutes. It is so essential that we make sure everybody is counted, because right now, as we are waiting for more federal stimulus money, the money comes to the states based on the number of people we report every 10 years. And given COVID-19, there are not going to be people coming to knock on your door. So we really are dependent on people to sign up and register and be counted at www.my2020census.gov. Also, the EDD, as of today, started resuming unemployment insurance claims. The EDD was down for a couple of weeks, working through some technology issues, but they are back up, and that website is www.edd.ca.gov. And they also have a very handy COVID-19 unemployment benefits guide. So please log on to that if you are unemployed. And then the last thing I want to mention, since we were talking about the Zogg fire earlier, there is a great nonprofit called United Policyholders. They are completely not dependent on insurance companies. And so their main job is to really guide you on insurance and also help you to navigate the claims. Again, they are not paid by an insurance company. They are really there to provide information, guidance, and support for anybody who is having difficulty filing their claim or getting their claim processed. So again, that website is uphelp.org. So thank you, Todd, again, for this opportunity to talk to your membership and your region. We thank everyone. And again, we have 4 W's in our office. Watch your distance, wear your mask, wash your hands, and we are all in this together. So thank you to Shasta County, and thank you, Todd Jones, from the Shasta EDC for hosting us here today.
All right, thank you again, Treasurer Ma. And I think we're at time, so we'll finish it there. Thank you again.
Okay.